Hi guys, welcome back. Another week, another video. My name is Fabio Palvelli, and if you watch this channel, you already know I'm a designer and I like to share my life on video, hopefully inspire others to do better. This week I had a chance to meet with a very old friend, Precht of Penda, and kind of have a conversation about different topics: design, architecture, startups, entrepreneurship. Chris and I have a bit of history. We met for the first time, I think it was in 2010 at the university in Vienna at the TU. Back then I used to run a blog called 3D Dreaming. The blog was very small, but it was at the beginning of this craze, and it was a very influential site when it came to parametric design, digital architecture, and so on and so forth. Also thanks to the work of Mike Pryor, which was putting a lot of content online, managing a lot of resources that were used by students all over the world. I remember that a couple of weeks before meeting Chris, I saw one of his projects online, and I actually published one of his projects on my own website. Teachers were doing crits, and we were just listening to the presentation of other projects. All of a sudden I see the renderings of Chris on the wall, and I was like, I've seen this work already. Then I went quickly through my blog online to check the projects that I recently published, and I saw that some of his projects were actually matching the style of the images that he was doing. And when I asked him his name, I could not believe that he was actually the guy that I published. I think that day we went out straight away drinking, and that's how our friendship started. Chris is a very creative guy. He's probably the most creative guy that I've ever met. It's a little bit difficult to explain the why. He's creative in a way that no other people is creative. Like, the way he talks, the way he looks at things, it has always made me question everything that I took for granted about architecture, about design, and about business. Actually, Chris started to build before becoming an architect, which was very impressive back then because, you know, architecture is a very competitive industry, and it was kind of like cool to catch up with him. Anyway, you guys know that lately I've been interviewing some people, and I've had conversations with them online. During this video, you'll probably see me jumping into the video itself because a couple of parts, the audio got messed up, and it's not really my fault. I now live in Tel Aviv, Chris lives in Austria, so the communication, it's not perfect. The video is very entertaining, and especially if you are a young designer, a young architect, a young entrepreneur working in the creative field, I am pretty sure that you're going to find this video very useful. Enough of me blabbling, enjoy the video.
And your mind turned totally German, huh?
Yeah.
When did you get so organized? Jesus.
I know, it's, you know...
I'm gonna put it on my calendar. We have a meeting from 4:30 to 5.
At one point, if you wanna run a business, you know how it is. You gotta keep it
German.
organized, right? What's going on, man? It's been a while, huh?
Yeah, it's been a while. All good. We're enjoying countryside life now.
I know. I can see. I follow your stories.
No, it's beautiful.
Is this the first time that you do something like this, like some sort of a conversation on the internet talking about, you know, whatever with somebody that is interviewing you?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But
I feel
I mean,
privileged now.
no, I mean over phone calls and so very often, but not over video.
But you know, let me tell you one
And
thing.
you know, so far, never a friend has interviewed me, so...
Okay, so first edit. In this part, the audio just... Chris, since the university times, looked very focused and very determined, and this is something that always inspired me. When we were at university, I always thought that he was going to be a successful architect because he was the only guy back then that had such a view about architecture, such innovative thoughts and innovative designs as well. Whilst on my side, I was always a little bit more doubtful about my career and the path that I was going to take. Also because I like to experiment a lot with other aspects of the profession, mainly social media. In this part I told him I try to experiment in different ways and hope that, you know, all the points at one point would connect, giving me the chance to find my own position within the industry. So I asked him if he had any similar experience.
I think that in the beginning, everything was somehow driven that you somehow get to a point, right? It was like, I think for me, I knew at the TU already where it's heading after the TU and what comes next and so forth, right? But I think now, especially after we moved back now I somehow want to get into this stage you described before, right? That you have some disconnecting things outside of architecture. So, I'm now part in a food business, and I want to get more experience in other startups, and so I'm somehow reaching out to people who who are doing something different than architecture, but somehow is connecting back to the topic I also want to build with in future. So I don't know if one day it somehow comes together as one thing. I think it can be like totally different streamlines which are going parallel to each other without intersecting at a certain point. But I think that as cool it is to work in architecture, because your life is very diverse, because you have a lot of different tasks to do. As cool it is to somehow look outside of architecture and somehow gain something back to it. So I'm somehow, what you described, I'm trying to enforce that onto myself a little bit.
I tell you, there is a very specific episode that I remember from one of our conversations at a university. Hold on, let me just do something, because I'm recording. Hold on, my wife is calling me. She's the real boss.
I know. I'm familiar with that.
Hi, Shatsi. Listen, I'm
Hi,
on
Shatsi.
video. Chris is also saying hi.
Oh, she's not hearing.
She's not hearing. I'm on a video conference. Yes, I'm. Okay. Listen, I have to call you back because I'm on a phone call with. All right, I'll talk to you later. I am not going to edit this part out. I think that real life is actually what's more entertaining. Dude, listen. Before we interrupted, I said there is a thing that I really remember from one of our conversations that we were having. You just finished this proposal for, I think it was a museum in China, and I say to you, this project really doesn't look like anything that you have done so far. And I was like, what's going on? Are you now working for clients? Aren't you doing your thing anymore? And you say to me, you always work for clients. And I was like, what do you mean you always work for clients? You're a star architect and you do your own project, and in a way, And now that I'm in business myself, I resonate a lot more with your own point of view than with the one that the architecture school was giving us.
Yeah, actually, I do remember this conversation. I think we had a couple of beers, but I still remember.
We always.
Yeah, no, but I think back then, I was also pretty naive when it came to it. But I think this part is really true, and it got more and more true the longer I had an office. There is somewhere on Instagram a little photo where it says that what is art is like masturbation, but architecture is like having sex or so. Like it's not just about yourself. It's not an ego thing. I think they are not. In no other profession, maybe in cooking, there are more egos than in architecture. It is driven by egomaniacs, but I think those times where there is like this master of architecture and he dictates what is happening to a building, this will come to an end or is already fading a bit, right? So it's much more of a team collaboration. Architecture is always a compromise. You will never have your first draft exactly executed like you had it in your thought, because there are so many many different voices you have to please. I mean, you also then need to be a little bit of strong-minded to know what exactly the main parts are of your design which you want to bring through and where you don't want to compromise. But in the end, it's not just about pleasing yourself. It's about the best project is where probably everybody's equally unhappy. I don't know, because you compromise, but you're still on a level where it's okay, and the client maybe went a bit over budget, but he's still okay with the outcome. So maybe it's somehow like this.
So the trick is not about making the client happy; it's to make the client equally unhappy as you.
Well, we get super frustrated, right, if some parts are cut from our designs, or if there are add-ons which don't feel fit to the design anymore. But I mean, there are some ways in architectural design to also avoid that, right? If you create, for example, a flexible system who can adapt to certain changes, or getting the client or having strategies of how the client can become part of your design team very early on. So you set him or her some thoughts into his imagination. So he somehow says, "Oh, maybe it's this idea we're going forward, but actually it was your idea all along." So I think there are some interesting strategies you can apply when it also comes to a psychological level. But it always is that there is a lot of interaction with clients within the team and so forth, and not just an egocentric architect who is deciding the whole thing through, I guess.
No, I percent. The only thing is that now that I'm having this conversation with you, I'm really thinking, in the last few years, I've become a teacher and I've become very involved in teaching. Teaching is, very relevant to me also at a global level. Like, I'm very interested in what other people are doing to actually push the profession forward. I work specifically in the field of visualization, interior and architecture, but I now realize that the skills that we have actually could help you to make it into any other field if you set your mind to. And I saw it, with yourself as well. Now you're involved in like startups. Probably there is a big mistake that I'm doing with this video because I'm not making an introduction about yourself, but I don't think you need one. I mean, what the hell?
We can do it later on, like as a spoiler alert.
But in a way, I wish there were people like you more involved in education. You know what I mean? Because I know you probably don't have the time because it doesn't leverage with the money that you can make and the time that you could spend doing this.
I didn't get an offer yet. I would be very happy to get into education.
Because I think, this could be very beneficial, I'm sure that you would have to make a sacrifice because, running a business, now I just said, to make money, but to make money to keep on your office running, probably teaching might not be that rewarding economically speaking, but we would benefit from people like you, in a teaching environment, because I really realized
do other architects.
Yeah, but
Sorry.
I don't know, because every time that, you see a lot of architects talking about their projects, like I was very disappointed also with talks from Zaha Hadid and Patrick Schumacher, where, the discussion was so elevated that, people were like making up words as they were going along, and very often I was like, cut to the chase and talk about the business side of things, which a lot of architects don't do.
Yeah, or not just about business side, but I think there are a lot of topics we should have a conversation about. I also think that architectural talks are most of the time the most boring ones out there, and because we mostly hold talks as architects for other architects. But this is not our audience we need to reach. It's not our task to please other architects. We somehow should find a way how to connect to the non-architects, that also then would make our profession probably more relevant in the future. Because, as you said before, I think there's something very real about that. Due to our education, what I think is very broadly, we learn how to think in systems, how to think in strategies, how to think creative, and these are all things that you probably don't learn in a different education outside of architecture. And this can be applied to a lot of things, like you said before, right? Not just to education, but really think about globally important visions for our future. Because we are long-term thinkers. We think about what will happen in the next 50 years. Where will the majority of people live? What is the stream of people? Where do we get our resources from? And so forth. Politicians, for example, who actually need to solve all of our problems, or should solve all of our problems, they are just thinking in 4 years circles, right? What happens at the next election? So when something is not profitable until the next elections, it will never be done, because populism is just too strong in our daily conversations. So architects, I think, at a certain point need to take on also those important questions, because we are very well trained to do that.
No, I'm 100% with you. Let me just ask you a couple of things, because of course I personally think, I might be wrong, that a lot of the success that you have had is linked to the fact that you have very strong communication skills. Not only like spoken communication skills, but also like graphical communication skills. Your projects are very well presented. You use rendering techniques to display your projects, to explain your projects. And this is something that we see a lot of architects still struggling today with. And okay, my recording keeps crashing because my hard drive is full. So basically I was asking you, visuals have played a very big role in your work, and the way your work has basically gained a lot of attention. I remember, asking you stuff like, how did you do this? And you would say to me, oh, I scripted that in Python. And I was like, what? How did you do that? And you'll be like, no, it's very simple. Or like, I would look at your renders, and even though I was very interested in rendering and I would study rendering myself, I could never understand how you would do such great pictures, because you made the renderings yourself, right?
Yeah. So far, I think I didn't give any important projects out there. So everything on the website and on the Instagram page and so is self-done. Yeah.
Dude, I get always blown away by that. It's because I think there is you get rewarded for the fact that you have respect for that part of your job. You know what I mean? A lot of architects use visualizations with so little respect for the visualization itself that sometimes I think you deserve to be unemployed and not to have a client. You know what I mean?
You mean, yeah. but I get it. I mean, of course, I learned it by myself. We are a lucky generation in a way, right? So we started to study where it was normal to get into 3D software. Scripting was a bit more towards the end when it came, but I was always interested to pick up all of those things by myself, because I want to be involved in the projects. We are working in Penda as well. I don't just want to direct and look on the screen at the end of the day what was produced and so. I really want to work on projects. So I rather set back or give out the things like client communication or daily emails or so. Or I try to do that very early in the morning. So during the day, I somehow keep it open to work on projects, also me included. So not just the team, but also me on the computer, because first of all, you exactly know what it means when there are changes. For example, in a meeting, when the client tells you something to change, you know exactly where this change are going into, how it can be applied. You have much faster some answers and replies for the client. But also, it's also it's part of part of what doesn't work in architecture or in offices I've worked before didn't work so well, that there is always a difference that what the architect has in mind and the design architect on the computer is modeling. So it takes a lot of steps in this process, like what the explanation is, what the vision is, but what then on a separate person comes out on the screen. But if you can model already a little bit, like the first steps of a project to explain the main design ideas and so, and then give it further, then everybody knows exactly how to pick it up and develop it then into the main goal. So I think it's also a much more efficient way then to work.
Do you think you can do this forever in a way?
I hope so. I mean, so far it is fun. I did Nordic combination, right? I did ski jumping and cross country skiing, right? And the architecture is much more like cross country skiing. It is a very long time profession. It takes time until you get good. And the most important thing is, I think, to somehow keep your passion towards the end, right? Because we are good when we turn 60 or 70, then we get good as an architect. But if you don't have motivation for the profession anymore, then it's somehow wasted energy. So I think you need to find some ways of how to keep your motivation for architecture high, but on a long time. So in this sense, it's very much comparable to cross-country skiing.
That's a beautiful and somehow romantic analogy, you know what I mean? I never put it that way.
No, but I mean, I felt it. I've seen that in the last 4 years in China. We seriously worked a lot during the last 4 years. We did about 150 projects or so in 4 years. So, when you don't have anything outside of architecture, it just eats you up from the inside. Although it is always fun to work on stuff, but because it is so much fun, you somehow oversee it when your body is not responding to it anymore, and and architecture becomes harmful to your body. So now we are in Austria, and life is really different. So now I really find a balance between my architecture time and my non-architecture time.
How do you manage that?
Well, it depends on what projects we are working on. For example, I did not say yes to a lot of projects during the summer. I wanted to enjoy the summer more, so we said no to a lot of projects. But now I think in winter, now there are a lot of projects lined up. So it's always, when you can direct where you say no and where you say yes to projects, and I think it's easy to manage on how much time you're spending on architecture. But I do now my regular hours. I don't work longer than 7 o'clock, and so I want to keep a very good balance between my architecture life and my non-architecture life.
It is the best thing to just say at 7 o'clock that room is closed, and you just get out of here.
But it's easy to close the room, but to shut off your brain, it's a bit harder.
I know. I can relate to this, man. I can relate to this. Very often there are some sort of like crisis management, you can imagine having a conference where 300 people come from all over the world, and if there is something small, it becomes very big. So, it's...
and probably most of it is on your shoulders then, right?
Put it this way, it's a continuous thinking about it, like sometimes my wife, she gets mad because she goes like, listen, we are having a day off, why aren't you looking at me? And I'm like, I'm thinking how I can make that better,
And she's so right. Yeah, no, but I mean, now it's also much easier to keep a balance, right? Because we are in Austria, and it's damn beautiful to live here, right? Like the quality you have on the countryside of Austria, it's incredible.
Even in the city, man.
Yeah, I mean, well, city is also nice. I'm a bit run down by cities in general. When I come to Salzburg, it's already too large for me. But it's so easy to somehow go on the back of your house to the mountains and so forth. In China, to find something which balances you and gives you a bit of harmony, it's much more difficult.
I remember, where you live, it's fantastic. I remember during your wedding, when we had to climb up the mountain, and the view from up there, it was just amazing. And
it was a beautiful time.
Yeah, thinking that you can do that daily. It's there is a difference, with like Tel Aviv and Austria. In Tel Aviv, it's also very nice. The weather, it's nice. When it's winter, it's surprisingly cold. You wouldn't believe it. Even if there are like 20, 25 degrees, I don't know why the house gets cold.
Yeah.
But I've got the sea. You got the mountain. I got the sea. So if you want to come and see me, the sea is waiting for you.
Yeah. No, Tel Aviv is beautiful. I was struck by the vividness of Tel Aviv. Like
you're building a tower here, right?
Yeah, we are designing a tower. Yeah. I always judge a city by how many runners you see in the morning. How people really enjoy the city living there. Yes. And Tel Aviv, I think when you go out at 6, it's filled with runners, especially at Jaffa and so. Oh, it's crazy.
Everybody is so healthy. Like you got 60 years old people which are 100 times healthier than me. And I'm like, how do they do this?
Yeah.
Anyway. Listen, dude. I've taken already 47 minutes of your life. I don't know how many people are going to make it through the whole thing. I wanna take this as a sort of like a test run, just to see if people like what we're doing here. Also, I'm not really sure if I can publish this on the D2 channel. Probably I'll put it on my own personal channel.
Sure.
This is more like design and business related, but there are a couple of things that I would like to discuss with you, hopefully in another video. I don't know, because I think that the discussion can be taken a step further. Like I would be very interested to see how an architect, with the set of skills that the architect has, how she can be successful, say in the startup scene, for instance. This is something that I'm doing myself. Tomorrow I'm going to a Google talk. I'm very interested in starting businesses. We have had a couple of good runs into working in the creative part of business, which I think that the skills that we learn as architects can help us, with when going in that direction. But anyway,
I guess so. Because you're thinking more about coherent, like one coherent brand, right?
Yeah.
What it all includes. I think that's the same with the building. It has so many different elements which somehow need to become one.
Exactly. You take a lot of small problems, you put them together, you basically build a big solution. And architecture, I think it's a fantastic sort of like educational path that can actually help you into creating startups or small businesses, if you have a business mindset, which
That's the most important thing, yeah.
Which I
because
think
this one, yeah.
Which
Sorry,
I think which I think very often in school you don't get.
Yeah, exactly. I wanted to say the same. Because also maybe if design lessons or design courses, business courses are offered, I'm not sure if we really take them, because the design part of architecture is just so damn beautiful, right? Mm-hmm. Especially as a student. And business, on the other hand, is something dry next to it. But probably it is not well taught in architecture schools, because it can be something fundamentally important when starting up your own business or going out in different fields as a kind of a startup and so on.
Oh, hold on a sec. Somebody's ringing the door. Hold on. What were we saying?
Schools and business, yeah.
No, probably basically one other thing that I am thinking that we could do together and kind of discuss over the internet would be how to take your skills, your creative skills, and kind of channel all your knowledge and all your effort into making something different from architecture. Because, I was once at a lecture years ago from Cook, the British archigram, I think it was called, Peter Cook,
Sure.
And he was in conversation with a South Korean architect, a very famous one. I don't remember the name right now. And the architect was telling him all the time, oh my God, we're struggling so much. And now, luckily enough, we have a couple of clients and things are okay. But we're always struggling. And Peter Cook said, oh my God, what makes you do all this? Why don't you just do something else? And the guy said, oh yeah, it's easy for you to say, blah, blah, blah. You don't know what it's like to be an architect and what it's like to work. They were having a back and forth, but it was funny. And then what Peter Cook said, he said, I'll show you. One day I'll be an architect without having built anything at all. Mm-hmm. And actually, it was like 11 or 12 years ago that I listened to this talk, and Peter Cook didn't really have any big buildings under his belt. But then he started to build because of the influence that he had as a...
in the field, yeah.
Yeah, in the field. So, this kind of taught me that you don't really have to do what people expect you to do to kind of get to a certain... point, and I wish there was a chance to teach this to the young people, because a lot of people think that in order to be an architect, in order to grow in architecture, you have to do what everybody does, which is work for free, work 25 hours a day, which, maybe it is what you want to do, but it's not necessarily the only way for you to become a designer, an architect, or whatever.
Yeah, and I mean, even if you study architecture, there are now, I mean, that's the most beautiful thing about the times we are living in now, that the field of architecture widened up so immensely. This playing field, what you can do on it, through different softwares which are coming in, through different rapid prototyping, for example. You be an architect, but you're making jewelry or shoes.
Yeah.
This all is somehow architectural thinking, because the work you're putting in, the creativity you're putting in, it's all related, right? So this field widened up, and you can do one day this one, the next one this one. So when you're young, you can play on all of those fields until you somehow find your voice, which then sticks with you. I think that's one of the most beautiful parts of our generation in our profession.
Yeah, and also the fact that we have so many social media channels allow you to reach a certain status where you don't really have to gain experience in someone's office, but you can work on your own until you become good, which I think is what you did, because you have used a lot your influence online to actually get projects before you even were an architect. You know what I mean?
Yeah, But it is a different thing. I think social media, you're connecting to other architects again.
Yeah.
You're somehow pleasing your profession, although your clients will never be other architects.
Yeah.
I mean, they will somehow get the referrals and it slowly builds up. But social media is so fast pacing that it never creates this level of trustship. What you need to create with a real client, right?
Yes,
this one doesn't happen over social media, but of course it's a great way of getting your name out and somehow present yourself in a certain way to people. For that it's good, but not necessarily of getting more clients in.
No, you have really said something key, and I really hope that those who are going to watch this, they pick up on this, because I'm making a YouTube video about this pretty soon, which is very important, but I don't want to spoil it. The only thing is that, Chris, I'm afraid I'm going to run out of disk space again. So I just want to, interrupt the recording now. I promise you that we're going to make another video, and maybe what I can do, I can script something for you to kind of, see where we want to go with that video, and maybe we can...
You do a storyboard?
Yeah, sort of. No, but like topics that I would like to touch.
Sure. Yeah, no, sure, let's do that.
Dude, what I'm going to do, I'm going to stop the recording now so you can say goodbye to people, and I'm going to stop the recording. Goodbye to people. And then I'm going to say goodbye to you in private, okay?
Well, let's do that. See you next time.
Thanks a lot for doing this, Chris.
No worry. Always.
Bye.